There are moments in life when something catches your attention. A repeated number, a word overheard by chance, a sudden feeling that arrives with no explanation. You pause, and for a brief second, everything feels still, as if the world has turned its gaze toward you. Deep inside, you know it isn't random. Something greater is speaking. But most of the time, that whisper gets lost in the noise of thought. The universe never shouts. It speaks through subtlety, through the rhythm of coincidence, through the gentle pull of intuition, through what your rational mind dismisses as chance. Yet only a few truly hear it, not because the message isn't there, but because they have forgotten how to listen. We live surrounded by noise, the constant hum of information, the endless scroll of screens, the dopamine rush that numbs our sensitivity to the invisible. The modern mind has become addicted to speed, stimulation, and certainty. But the language of the universe requires stillness, not speed. It reveals itself not through effort, but through vibration. Napoleon Hill once wrote that every person is connected to what he called infinite intelligence, a higher field of consciousness that responds to the nature of our thoughts. Joe Dispenza would describe the same thing through neuroscience. The brain and heart generating electromagnetic waves that interact with the quantum field. Both speak of the same truth, only through different lenses, that the universe is not outside of you, it is moving through you. Yet to perceive it, one must become silent. The signs of the universe are not decoded by logic, but by resonance. They don't arrive through the mind's calculations, but through the body's intuition, that subtle knowing that lives beneath thought. The truth is, 99% of people miss the signs not because they aren't sent, but because they are too busy trying to control how they should appear. The mind's need for certainty creates static that blocks the frequency of perception. The signal is always there, but your vibration decides whether you hear it or not. Just as a radio cannot tune in to a station it isn't resonating with, the human energy field cannot decode a message that it isn't aligned with emotionally. Your emotional state determines your frequency of perception, and that frequency, not your focus or effort, is what decides what realities you can perceive. So ask yourself, how much silence still exists in your life? How often do you allow yourself to feel before you think? How often do you rest your mind enough for the whisper of the universe to be heard? This video is not about teaching you to chase signs. It is about remembering how to receive them. To understand that the universe does not choose the few who are blessed, it simply answers those who are still enough to listen. Only 1% are ready to receive the sign, not because they are better, but because they have learned to quiet the noise. They live in awareness, not in reaction. They trust vibration more than logic. They have discovered that when the mind grows silent, life itself begins to speak. And if you are here, hearing these words, it is not by chance. You are already among the few who have felt the pull of that whisper. Because the very act of recognizing that the universe may be speaking to you means that you have begun to vibrate at the frequency of its message. You are not waiting for a sign. You are in the process of becoming one. When awareness awakens, coincidence becomes communication, and from this moment on, nothing that reaches your attention will ever be random again. The universe speaks in silence, but almost no one listens. We have become creatures of noise, surrounded by constant motion, information, and distraction. The mind, overstimulated by screens, notifications, and expectations, loses its sensitivity to the invisible frequencies that guide existence. The more we seek stimulation, the more we become deaf to the language of stillness. The cosmic messages continue to arrive, but the mind, intoxicated by activity, calls them coincidences and moves on. There was a time when humanity could feel the pulse of nature, when a change in the wind carried meaning, when a dream was a message, when intuition guided decisions as surely as logic does now. That sensitivity has not been lost. It has only been buried under layers of artificial noise. The constant craving for newness, new content, New validation, new information has trained the brain to live in anticipation, never in presence. And presence is the only place where the universe can speak. We live in a world that rewards mental speed but punishes inner quiet. The dopamine of distraction creates the illusion of connection, but it disconnects us from the subtle field where intuition resides. The body remains restless, the mind never stops calculating, and the heart rarely has a chance to lead. Yet precisely the heart acts as the antenna for the messages of the universe. Napoleon Hill called this state infinite intelligence, the invisible field that connects all minds. Joe Dispenza describes it as the quantum field, a vast realm of possibility that responds not to words, but to vibration. But there is a paradox. This field is always broadcasting, yet only a silent mind can receive its frequency. The rational mind loves control. It wants proof, explanation, pattern. So when a synchronicity appears, when you think of someone and they call, when you feel a pull toward a place or number, the mind immediately intervenes. It classifies it as random, meaningless, a trick of perception. But the true blindness is not the absence of vision. It is the excess of analysis. You cannot perceive what you are trying to control. You cannot receive guidance if you are busy dictating what it should look like. The sign is not lost because it wasn't sent. It is lost because your attention is too loud to hear it. The 99% live in reaction, mistaking activity for awareness. They scroll, they plan, they rush, believing that movement equals progress. But awareness does not grow through movement, it grows through presence. The real silence the universe requires is not the absence of sound, but the stilling of inner resistance. The mind believes perception is created by attention, but in truth, perception is calibrated by emotion. You don't see the world as it is, you see the world as you feel. When your emotional frequency is anxious, your perception narrows. You filter everything through survival. But when your frequency is calm, open, and trusting, the field expands, and the signals, those small, miraculous alignments, become visible. The universe never stops communicating. You are constantly surrounded by symbols, synchronicities, and frequencies responding to your state of being. The problem is not the absence of the sign, it is the distortion of the receiver. To the 99%, the sign seems like a coincidence. To the 1%, it is guidance. The only difference between the two is silence. So if you find yourself feeling lost, disconnected, or uncertain, remember this. The message has never stopped arriving. The universe has never stopped speaking. You have only forgotten how to listen. And the moment you remember, the moment you quiet the noise long enough to feel instead of think, the whisper will return. It always does. Because the language of the universe does not need words. It needs resonance. And silence is the doorway through which resonance enters. Most people wait for a sign not to be guided, but to be validated. They want confirmation that what they already decided to believe is right. They look to the universe as if it were a mirror of their desires, not a messenger of their evolution. And when the sign finally comes, if it challenges what they want, they call it confusion, not revelation. The truth is, the universe doesn't send signs to satisfy the ego. It sends them to awaken the soul. The human mind has a deep need to control meaning. It wants to know what is right, what is wrong, what will happen, and when. So when synchronicity appears, when life begins to echo your thoughts in strange and beautiful ways, the mind immediately tries to claim ownership over it. It means I'm right, it says. It means I'm on the path I wanted. But the universe never validates the path of comfort. It reveals the path of truth. And truth at first rarely feels comfortable. The ego seeks confirmation. The soul seeks alignment. One tries to control the outcome, the other tries to expand awareness. When you chase a sign as proof that your plan is correct, you stop hearing what the universe is actually saying. The field is responding to your vibration, not to your wishes. And when your vibration is rooted in the need for control, you distort the signal itself.
Napoleon Hill warned of this subtle trap. He said that faith is not hoping that the world will confirm your will, but trusting that the unseen intelligence will lead you where your growth requires. Joe Dispenza says the same thing differently. When you are emotionally attached to a specific result, you collapse the field of infinite possibility into limitation. You narrow the flow of guidance to fit the small shape of your desire.
The universe, however, has no interest in feeding illusions. It is only interested in coherence, in leading you toward vibrational alignment with what your soul came to express. This is why the true sign doesn't arrive to comfort you. It arrives to challenge you. It reveals where your energy is out of sync with your higher potential. It doesn't come to flatter your mind, but to stretch your heart. That is why, so often, the real sign feels inconvenient. It shows up at the exact moment your logic resists it. It appears when your plans are most rigid, and it whispers, "Not this way." The ego calls that a problem. The soul calls it direction. When you feel resistance toward a message or coincidence that repeats in your life, that is not rejection, that is revelation. Resistance is the body's signal that your current vibration cannot yet sustain the truth that is being offered. You are being shown what frequency you must grow into. The mistake of the 99% is interpreting the sign through desire. The wisdom of the 1% is allowing the sign to shape their desire. They no longer ask, "Is this what I want?" but rather, "What is this teaching me to become?" Synchronicity is not fortune-telling. It is feedback. It is the mirror through which the universe reflects your inner frequency. Every sign, every coincidence, every repeated symbol is saying one thing. This is where your vibration is now. The moment you stop chasing confirmation and start listening for transformation, the language of the universe changes tone. It becomes clearer, quieter, truer. You begin to notice that not every signal is meant to push you forward. Some come to pause you. Some come to realign you. Some come to close doors that your mind would have kept open forever. And this, too, is grace, because the universe does not care about your timeline. It cares about your alignment. So when the sign comes and it doesn't match your expectations, don't turn away. Don't demand meaning that comforts you. Ask instead, what truth is this trying to reveal in me? Because when you do, the message deepens, the noise dissolves, the alignment begins. And then finally, you stop chasing proof of the universe because you realize you have become its proof. There is a point where the invisible becomes tangible, where thought and emotion merge into one single frequency. It is in that point that synchronicity happens. The quantum field, which surrounds and sustains everything, does not respond to words, wishes, or effort. It responds only to coherence. When what you think and what you feel are aligned, the field begins to reorganize itself around that vibration, arranging probabilities, coincidences, and people to mirror your inner state. Joe Dispenza calls this heart-brain coherence, the union of intention and emotion into one signal so pure that the universe cannot help but respond. Napoleon Hill called it faith applied, the state of consciousness in which thought transcends reason and becomes magnetism. Different languages, one truth. When the mind and heart speak the same vibrational language, creation listens. This is the quantum point of synchronicity. Not something you attract from outside, but something you project from within. The signs you perceive are not messages arriving from a distant source, they are reflections of the frequency you emit. The universe is a mirror of emotion, not a machine of reward. Every synchronicity is an echo of your own energetic state reverberating through the field. When your vibration is incoherent, when your thoughts are hopeful but your emotions are fearful, the signal you send is fragmented. The field receives mixed messages. You may ask for abundance but vibrate scarcity. You may ask for love but emit fear of rejection. And so the universe responds not with denial, but with reflection, showing you situations that match your actual vibration, not your stated intention. This is why many people believe the universe is silent, when in truth, it is simply honest. Synchronicity is not luck. It is physics. Every emotion generates an electromagnetic wave. Every thought modulates that wave with intention. Together, they form your unique energetic signature, your personal code in the language of creation. The more coherent this signal, the clearer the reflection. The less coherent it is, the more distorted the message.
Neville Goddard called this the embodied imagination, the art of feeling a desire as already fulfilled. When you imagine something and feel it as real in your body, you are no longer asking the universe, you are instructing it through vibration. The field cannot resist emotional truth, it bends to it. This is why gratitude is one of the most powerful frequencies in existence. Gratitude tells the field, I already have. And when you vibrate in already, the universe aligns your outer world to reflect that inner certainty. Faith, in its purest form, is emotional coherence. The 1% understand this. They do not pray from lack, they project from wholeness. They do not wait for signs to believe, their belief creates the signs. Their life becomes a loop of cause and reflection, thought and echo, creation and confirmation. And once you enter this state, the distinction between inner and outer begins to dissolve. The field is no longer separate from you, it becomes you. You begin to see that the universe is not communicating to you, it is communicating as you. Every synchronicity is your consciousness calling itself home. So the next time you notice a sign, a repetition, a whisper, a coincidence too precise to dismiss, don't ask, what does this mean? Ask instead, what part of me is being reflected right now? Because in that awareness, you reach the quantum point where creation becomes conversation. At that point, faith is no longer something you have, it is something you are. And in that state, life stops being random. It becomes music. There is a sacred moment in every spiritual journey, the point where you realize that understanding is not the same as control. The greatest test of awareness is not whether you can interpret the sign, but whether you can allow it to exist without forcing it to mean what you want. True connection with the universe begins when you stop chasing explanations and start resting in trust. Most people are not afraid of silence, they are afraid of what silence reveals. When the sign appears, the mind rushes in to interpret, to analyze, to label. It wants certainty, it wants closure. But the universe does not speak the language of urgency. Its messages unfold in rhythm, not in rush. The more you try to decode them immediately, the further they slip away. The meaning of a sign is never found in the moment of anxiety. It is revealed in the space of surrender. Napoleon Hill described faith as the quiet confidence that unseen forces are already working in your favor. Joe Dispenza explains it as coherence, the alignment of your nervous system with trust rather than survival. Both point toward the same state of being, a consciousness that no longer needs to control timing or outcome. In that state, you are no longer demanding proof from the universe, you are resonating with it. Fear and urgency are frequencies of separation. They communicate to the field, I do not trust. And the universe, obeying its law of reflection, sends you more experiences that confirm that lack of trust. But surrender is the opposite vibration. It says, I release control, because I know I am already guided. In that moment, the signal clears, the message stabilizes, the sign becomes visible, not because the universe finally speaks, but because you have finally quieted enough to listen. Every time you try to force a sign to fit your expectations, you reduce divine communication to the limits of logic. The mind interprets through memory, but the soul receives through sensation. When a synchronicity appears, you don't need to dissect it, you need to feel it. The body recognizes truth faster than the intellect ever could. A shiver, a calm, a knowing,
These are the vibrations of guidance. When you surrender, you shift from mental analysis to energetic resonance. The sign is no longer a puzzle to solve, but a frequency to inhabit. That is why the most powerful question you can ask when a coincidence appears is not, "What does this mean?" but, "What is this frequency asking me to feel right now?"
That question transforms your entire relationship with the universe. Because the universe does not send messages to your mind, it sends them to your vibration. When you learn to feel the message instead of forcing its meaning, you enter the sacred space where guidance becomes embodied. This is what it means to live in the time of the universe. Human time is linear, impatient, always searching for what's next. Universal time is circular, patient, and deeply intelligent. It unfolds through synchronicity, through the perfect alignment of moments that only make sense when you look back. When you stop rushing to understand and allow yourself to dwell in curiosity, the meaning emerges naturally, like dawn dissolving darkness. To surrender is not to give up. It is to let go of resistance to what already is. It is to trust that the sign appeared precisely when your energy was ready to perceive it, and that its meaning will reveal itself when your vibration matches its frequency. There is no need to hurry the process. The signal always meets you at the level of your readiness. The 1% live in this quiet rhythm. They no longer chase messages. They recognize them. They no longer demand answers. They become attuned to the feeling of alignment itself. Their power lies not in control, but in presence. Because when you stop trying to interpret every sign and instead allow yourself to feel the truth beneath it, the anxiety disappears and peace takes its place. And that peace, that still, unwavering trust, is the vibration that the universe has been waiting for you to emit. It is in that silence that you finally understand you were never trying to catch the sign. You were always being guided to become still enough to receive it.
Imagine the ocean at night, the sky heavy with mist, the sea restless, and a dense fog covering everything in sight. Somewhere beyond the haze, a lighthouse stands, its light unwavering, patient, constant. But from where you are, the light seems to appear and disappear, flickering between visibility and darkness. You might think the light is intermittent, inconsistent, unreliable. Yet the truth is simple. The light was never gone. It was your perception that was clouded. The lighthouse is the universe. The fog is your mind. The light of guidance never stops shining. It never fails. It never hides. The signs, the synchronicities, the intuitive nudges, they are constant, pulsing like a heartbeat through the field that sustains all creation. But the fog of thought, the emotional turbulence of fear and doubt, distorts the clarity of that light. The universe doesn't withdraw its communication. It simply waits for your vibration to clear the mist. The fog is formed by resistance, by the accumulation of thoughts and emotions that demand certainty. Each worry, each hesitation, each mental debate thickens it. The more you try to see, the less you perceive. Because the act of trying belongs to the mind, but the act of perceiving belongs to the soul. The moment you stop struggling to see, the fog begins to dissolve. Napoleon Hill wrote that faith is the eternal elixir that gives life, power, and action to thought. That faith is the clarity that pierces the fog. Joe Dispenza would say that when your heart and brain achieve coherence, your electromagnetic field aligns, and the noise of confusion quiets. Both are describing the same state. When the inner atmosphere clears, the light that has always been there becomes visible again. There is something profoundly humbling about this realization.
The universe doesn't send you signs because it suddenly decides you are worthy of them. It sends them constantly. The moment you finally see one, it isn't because the universe chose to reveal itself. It's because you became still enough, coherent enough, present enough to recognize what was always there. To see the light is not a miracle. It is a moment of clarity between noise and truth. It is the instant when your inner vibration matches the frequency of guidance. And in that moment, perception transforms into communion. Think of it this way. Every human being lives surrounded by divine light, yet most walk in fog. They call life unpredictable, random, chaotic. But those who learn to calm the mind, who breathe through fear, who allow the fog to thin, they begin to see patterns where others see coincidence, order where others see accident, meaning where others see chaos. The fog never truly disappears. Life will always bring moments of uncertainty. But once you have seen the light, you cannot forget its direction. You begin to trust that even when visibility fades, the lighthouse still stands, and its beam will always find you when you are ready. And perhaps this is the essence of awakening, not living without fog, but remembering that the light has never gone out. So if you have seen the sign, if something inside you resonates as you hear these words, know that it was never by chance. It is a sign that your vibration has reached the threshold of recognition. You have aligned just enough with the frequency of awareness for the universe to become visible again. That alone is the miracle, not the light itself, but your ability to perceive it. Because the universe has always been speaking. You are simply beginning to remember its language.
There comes a moment, quiet, unannounced, when everything you have been searching for begins to make sense. The signs you once doubted, the coincidences you dismissed, the whispers you ignored, they aligned like stars in a pattern you can finally see. It is then that you realize the universe was never testing you, it was tuning you. Every delay, every silence, every unanswered question was shaping your vibration until it matched the frequency of truth. Napoleon Hill called it the moment of faith, that invisible bridge between desire and manifestation, where thought transforms into energy and energy into experience. Neville Goddard described it as the union of imagination and belief, the sacred act of feeling something so deeply real within that the external world must rearrange itself to reflect it. Both understood the same eternal law. Awareness, when united with vibration, creates destiny. The signs of the universe are not random miracles, they are the mathematics of consciousness. Each synchronicity, each subtle encounter, each inexplicable knowing is the universe's way of revealing that you and it are not separate. The field does not exist outside of you. It flows through you, responds to you, and expresses itself as you. When you finally realize this, seeking ends. You no longer look for meaning in the world, you feel meaning through the world. Faith, then, is not hope. Hope waits. Faith knows. Faith is the resting vibration of trust, the still point where the mind no longer interferes with what the heart already understands. In that silence, the signs multiply, not because the universe begins to speak more, but because you have become fluent in its language. The ones who awaken to this truth stop living as seekers and begin living as participants. They do not beg the universe for answers, they collaborate with it. They do not pray for signs, they live as signs. Every action, every word, every breath becomes a form of dialogue with the infinite intelligence that Hill spoke of. Life becomes a feedback loop of awareness and vibration, a continuous conversation between soul and creation. When you reach this state, destiny ceases to be a mystery. It becomes a reflection. You begin to notice that nothing truly random ever happens. Every person you meet, every emotion you feel, every obstacle you face carries information from the field. The universe stops being a teacher giving tests and becomes a mirror showing you who you are becoming. This is what it means to be among the 1%. Not wealth, not privilege, not superiority, but presence. The ability to remain so attuned to the frequency of the universe that guidance feels like breath. You no longer ask for signs because you are surrounded by them. The bird outside your window, the number that repeats, the stranger who smiles, they all speak the same quiet truth. You are aligned. When awareness meets vibration, destiny ceases to be a path to be found. It is an energy to be remembered. You realize that you were never lost, never ignored, never abandoned. The signs were there all along, waiting for the moment when your heart would slow down enough to see them. So if you are hearing this now, if you feel the subtle tremor of recognition in your chest, it is not coincidence. It is confirmation, not from me, but from the field itself, that you are awakening to your own resonance. The universe has never stopped speaking. You have simply learned to listen. And from this moment on, every coincidence will be sacred, every silence meaningful, and every heartbeat a reminder that you are and have always been part of the infinite intelligence that breathes through all things. You are not waiting for a sign. You are the sign.